I'm going to call. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order and see if there's any public comment on closed session. Seeing none, we will adjourn to closed session. We have returned from closed session and there's nothing to report out. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone to our meeting. Roll call, everyone is present this evening. Notice to the public, there will be an opportunity for you to speak on topics that are within the jurisdiction of the governing board, but not on the agenda. Later on in the meeting, I will let you know when that is. And we are on to recognition of guests and presentations.
None this evening.
All right, correspondence?
None.
All right, we are on the consent agenda. Is there any board comment on the consent agenda? Public comment on the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
The motion and a second. We'll do roll call vote. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. The consent agenda passes. We have nothing pulled from the consent agenda, so we'll move past that item. And we are on stakeholder communications. Tad, I think I saw you coming in, maybe not. Tad, are you here? Or anyone from Citizens Oversight? All right.
I'll just, if I can, Captain, excuse me, just I mentioned really quickly that we're going to be making a rather large push for members for the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. I understand that we're down to 2 members on what should be a 7-member. So we will be making a big push on that and asking for people's help to try to recruit and fill our spots. So stay tuned for more on that.
Excellent, great. And employee association reports. Are there any employee association reports this evening? All right, seeing none. Parent association reports. All right, everyone is enjoying their summer, it appears, which is as it should be. Moving on to public comment. This is your opportunity to make a comment about something that is on the agenda, not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, if anyone would care to do that at this time. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to our agendized items. We are on item A, the appointment of the principal for Gretchen Higgins Elementary School.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the governing board tonight to approve candidate who I will announce and provide some information on here in just a brief minute. I want to first just talk a little bit about our process with regards to selection of a new principal for Gretchen Higgins. So as is our custom, we use EdJoin is our vehicle for being able to post and recruit administrative candidates. So we made our post on EdJoin, left that open for about 2 weeks. We went through the entire selection process, interviewing 3 candidates, and did not find a candidate who I was comfortable in terms of recommending to the board for appointment. So we reposted the position after that first effort to fill it, and went through a second interview process. Both sequences of interviews, we had a stakeholder panel involving staff members from Gretchen Higgins, another member of the administrative team, and a parent. And in the second go round, and again, we had the same panel, minus one person who could not participate. The panel recommended the advancement of a candidate into the second stage of the process, which involves more contact with administrative staff and a lot of discussion directly with me. And I'm pleased to announce that after that process, I'm recommending to you tonight that Marta Salazar, who is a teacher at Anderson Elementary School, and has worked in Dixon Unified School District since 1992-93 school years, I believe, when Martha started. She worked at Sylvieville and Anderson throughout her career, teaching early grades in the elementary settings, and for the last number of years has been a response to intervention and ELD teacher, a lead EL an ELD lead at Anderson. She's currently serving as our summer program administrator for the second year. Marta grew up in this town after immigrating and learned English here, completed her studies, has raised 6 children in town who've all graduated from Dixon High School, a great bunch of people. Marta will bring to Gretchen Higgins a whole bunch of knowledge around teaching and learning. She'll bring a great personal style and way to interact and relate to people. She'll bring steady leadership that really is focused on the building of relationships as the core of everything that we do. And she will bring a passion for the success of our students and our staff and our families as well. So I am really happy to recommend Marta Salazar to you tonight as our new principal at Gretchen Higgins Elementary School, and take any questions that you have.
Are there any board questions? Are there any public comments on this item? If not, I'd just like to say congratulations to Marta and her, and we're excited to have her over at Gretchen Higgins. Any other board comments on that at all? Okay. All right, moving on to great work on that one.
Action.
Oh, action. I'm sorry. We're gonna have, we need to approve her for this. So I'm going to, I feel like we did, but I'm pretty sure we need to do it. Yes. All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve her.
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
It's a motion and a second. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Floyd?
Aye.
And I as well. Excellent. Thank you again for your work on that.
Thank you, and congratulations to Marta.
Yes.
Lots to do, and I hit the ground running.
And we are now on number 2, update on the transition of Main Prairie High School to the C. Jacobs campus.
Actually, that was in our final version. That should have been delayed. We're going to do that on August
Look
5th.
at my, I have 2 agendas going
yes.
in my, the one I like to cross things off of. And
Gotcha.
then the,
Yeah, we dropped that, and we'll do that on August 5th instead.
okay, let's just move on to update of the school year.
Great. Thank you very much. So while some are enjoying break time from their duties, there's a whole bunch of people who are actively involved in planning and organizing for the school year, which begins on August 11th. Just feels around the corner at this point in time, and it nearly is. So we wanted to provide a little bit of information tonight just on some of the work that is being done related to that. We've got some information coming from the state with regards to safety and health protocols, some of which is quite frankly confusing at this point in time. And not just us here in Dixon, but across the state. So I wanted to begin just by talking a little bit about staffing. And we have still a number of positions that have been posted, most of them for multiple weeks at this point in time, looking all the way back to early to mid-June for some of these. So teaching positions both in ELA at John Knight, some science at John Knight, a part-time social science teacher at John Knight, some science at Gretchen Higgins, the 80% prep teacher position there, and a math position at Dixon High School as well. We had a number of people resign and actually relocate after, just as the school year ended and afterwards. So postings went up as soon as that was feasible. We had a little bit of movement between sites as well. One of the science openings at John Knight occurred when a teacher there actually transferred over to Dixon High School to take another position. So there's been some internal movement as well. We have on Friday, the elementary principal team interviewed candidates for elementary positions that are open as well. They do that with all three administrators there and teacher reps as well. So they did fill a number of those, and they also were able, they did fill a number of those positions and also have one or two that are remaining, that remain open at this point in time. We also have a number, relatively small and for part-time jobs for the most part in the classified ranks. We have filled our payroll position, which became vacant just last week. We're going to be interviewing for accounts payable. I think on Monday is when we're going to be able to do that. But there are several just 10 or 12 hour per week food service assistant positions. I think most notably on the classified side, we have a maintenance worker 1 position, which is vacant, and it's a good job. You know, we're trying to drum up some entrants for that. You know, about $20 an hour or so, full health and dental benefits and retirement in there as well. So we are both word of mouth and other means to try to get some people to apply. So we encourage anybody interested in working in Dixon to go to edjoin.org. You create an account, and then you can look at applying for any of the positions that we have open. So this is high priority, both in HR and for our site administrators who are working to get these filled. We already have filled a number of positions at, I mentioned the elementaries, but at both John Knight and at Dixon High School, a number of positions have already been filled, as we just had more transitions than is the norm. So we'll continue to work on that. At I think the second meeting in August, I'll bring you enrollment and staffing numbers as I've done in the past, just kind of showing you any vacancies that we have left at that point in time, but also how our class sizes are running relative to contract ratios and those other elements. So staffing is really critical, obviously, but we also in this, wouldn't it be nice to be able to say post-COVID time, but we can't. As we watch the news swirling around us with this Delta variant or whatever the heck it's called, and case numbers starting to increase again. So I think the monitoring for school districts and LEAs is ramping up right now. And we all got something of a jolt this week when California Department of Public Health issued its guidance, which initially, which continues to maintain that everyone will wear masks while indoors and they will be optional outside. And the initial guidance indicated, maybe I should say something stronger than that, but that people, students who would not wear masks would be sent home, would not be able to attend in person. About 3 hours after that, was published, some backtracking was made, and we don't know what the backtracking means, quite honestly. Essentially, it said the mask mandate is in place. It's up to the local, in our case, the local school district, to decide how we were going to enforce that mandate. I was in a statewide conference today where this was talked about. Nobody knows really what this means. So to answer the question that so many people have, are masks going to be required when we come back to school in August? As of now, yes. As to any kind of flexibility or modifications that we would make internally here in the district, we don't know what those might be, what might be allowable. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be re-engaging, because we have had time off from it, with the meetings with the Solano County Department of Public Health, being able to get the latest direction and such from us. And I think there is a statewide clamoring coming from school districts and advocacy groups for school districts to clarify for us exactly what we're supposed to do here. I think this is at this point in time, the biggest issue that we're sensing out there with regards to safety practices and protocols. It is, other elements of guidance that, 3-foot distancing is now allowable, that we would, and in our case, we kind of interpret that to say desks in rows, probably not desks clustered together in 4s or 6s, as happens in different classrooms across the district. More flexibility outside for play and use of equipment and balls and such, and still widespread hand washing, sanitizers, some of those different elements that we've become quite accustomed to at this point in time. So I'm going to invite Mark Monticello to add or correct anything I had to say there, and then I'm also going to ask him to talk a little bit about our preparations with regards to cleaning, et cetera, on our campuses. So Mr. Monticello, it's all yours.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dolan. No, I don't believe there's any corrections there at this time, and you are correct. We continue to monitor the situation and figure out what's going on. I will add one thing to it. I believe testing is going to be an integral part coming up this fall. We are already authorized and have done PCR testing, which takes about a day to 2 days to get. And tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I have a Zoom meeting so that we can be authorized to do rapid tests. So we'll get in line to do that and have both of those available. As Superintendent Dolan said, we're in the middle of deep cleaning. I can tell you that today, Tremont, Gretchen Higgins, Main Prairie, and John Knight are almost complete in their deep cleaning. Sylvieville will begin Monday because we had extended school year there till last week. Anderson and Dixon High, the rooms that have been vacant for non-summer school are cleaned and ready to go. And then Tuesday afternoon, we'll start cleaning after summer school ends. This is the largest summer school classroom size wise at both the high school and Anderson Elementary that I have seen in my 10 plus years here. We're also using Elite Carpet to clean carpets. They are done with everything but the library at the high school. The classrooms at Anderson have carpets. We've kept them off the campus because of summer school. Sylvieville, they'll have to clean once we clean those rooms, and we have to reschedule the district office for its carpet cleaning, as July 5th did not work out for Isaac. That is where we are with cleaning. There are maintenance and grounds projects going on as we speak. And it is my hope to have all that stuff done prior to August 11th and hopefully by August 9th. And I will take any questions.
There's a board question on this item. Right. Are there any public comments or questions on this item? All right, seeing none. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed it. What are we doing about our extended education that we're supposed to be doing this next year, whether extended day or whatever it is that we are doing?
So thank you. It's part of the reopening conversation. We did introduce our desire to extend the elementary school day by 30 minutes and to add an advisory program to each of the secondary schools. We shared that with the Teachers Association in June as school was coming to a close and as we had a better sense of the kind of revenue that we had available. You are right in that part of the thinking behind the funding that we're receiving is with regard to learning loss mitigation and additional time and support for students. So at this point in time, we have not been able to begin to negotiate either of those items, which are required, that we, to add time to the duty day, which is currently 7.4 hours by contract, or to add a period in essence, which would be the case with the advisory program. So we would very much like to be able to get to the table with the bargaining unit, teachers bargaining unit, to be able to work on this more formally. I would say that there were questions, there was not a rejection, but I think the prospect of bargaining over the summer months was just not welcomed, or something that they were interested in doing at this point in time, which felt like we bargained nonstop from last March, and I don't know how many districts are bargaining over the summertime. I think most people kind of said enough. So we're not unusual, I don't believe, in not having bargaining going on right now. So for me personally, I'll just speak for me personally. I think that the adding 15 minutes of language arts time and 15 minutes of math time for all students in the instructional days would be a really great value. Just more time to teach our core. That's really when I think about a longer elementary day. No bells and whistles, no fancy new program, nothing of that nature. Just more time for our classroom teachers and intervention teachers, everyone to be able to just provide core instruction, good quality core instruction to our students. The advisory at the secondary levels, for all three, were viewed as a way to really help support AVID strategies and practices, to do some of the work around PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention Systems supports, and being able to also address some of the community building and social emotional issues of helping kids reconnect. So those are two things that we were very interested in. I know that, and if Nick wants to speak to it, that there are thoughts and planning going around some of the after-school tutoring, some of those types of items, but I don't know that we've actually got anything formally planned at this point in time. Nick, I'll ask you to speak to that if you don't mind.
I have a question. So this has to be bargained and
Yes.
voted on, but school starts on the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever happens, if we extend the day at all, it won't be when we start school.
There's no way that, yes, that anything would be possible here before school starts. Just totally unrealistic. Yeah, and the idea, I'm not sure, well, with bargaining, before you start, you never know where you're going to end up, right? That's one of the givens. And we did survey families, and one of the questions was about adding days to the school year. That was pretty soundly rejected as an option. It was mixed about having a longer day. I think as we bring students back and get into the routines of in-person and 5 days a week and those things, I think asking the question again about what do your kids need right now of parents and also staff. And for me, the idea of helping our students recover academically and socially from this work in the same footprint of time, I want more. And obviously I don't have a magic wand and get to wave that, or I'm not a dictator or anything of that nature. I think it's something we have to seriously talk about and try to really try to pursue.
In the interest of full disclosure, you want more and we're going to pay for it. We're not
Of
just-
course,
we're not just
yes,
asking
yes,
for it.
thank you, yeah, sorry if I was unclear about that. Yes, it's not give us more and you're not compensated. No, it's that you add time into that contractual day, which is fully compensated. Yeah.
So it might happen around mid-year or.
I'm not even going to suggest a time. I mean, we don't know if we'd ever reach agreement on it or not. It's our intent. We will be returning to the topic as soon as we possibly can with the bargaining unit and seeing where they are in terms of an interest in discussing it with us.
So my understanding though is that money for the learning loss mitigation, that is what it's to be used for. And I would just highly recommend that unless we come up with some kind of plan, that money can be used. Because that's what it's for. It's for our students to make up for lost time. Teachers work really hard, students work really hard, but sitting at home in front of a computer is just not as effective as being in the classroom. I think that everyone could agree with that. And we have to make up for the time that we had lost and help students try to catch up and where they're struggling. And so as for this board member, would just suggest to really strive to have that taken care of ASAP as being a top priority, because if not, that money just has to sit there. It can't be spent.
Yeah, and to be clear, there's none of the funding that comes that is limited exclusively to additional time. It's one in all of the funding streams that are coming. It's one of the things that you are allowed to spend and is encouraged, right? So there's nothing that we're getting that is single purpose for any possible purpose. It's all pretty widespread, although some of the funding streams are more restrictive than others. But the idea of, kind of the old categorical approach where you got this dollar and it could only spend on this kind of function didn't come with the ESSER or CARES dollars, kind of broad categories. This one is obviously common throughout them, though, of having more time for kids.
Well, and to me, that's why we've been given extra money, is to help kids out who, to make up for to mitigate the loss that they had. And so I feel like we've been given that money and we need to use it for our students.
Yep.
Other questions on this item? All right, and I'd already opened for public comment, so we're going to move on to the next item. That one was for information discussion. We'll move on to the next item, which is the location of our board meetings, location and format.
Yes, so we've been doing this or something like this for too long now. And for those who might not be aware, prior to COVID, we held all of our meetings in city council chambers every first and third Thursday, and any special meeting we were able to get in there as well. So the city did close the chambers for COVID reasons. And actually, they closed City Hall to outsiders as well. I believe they just restored their hours, their full 5 days a week service hours at City Hall here just in the last week or two. I think I saw some publicity on that. Cicely, my secretary, was just able to get a response from the city earlier this week that they do not anticipate having the council chambers available because their heating and air conditioning unit died on them until the latter part of August. So
It was apparently in the paper today that they're going to be meeting in July. So I guess open the doors and windows.
okay, so the email that Cicely received, so perhaps.
And I believe that is exactly what happened. But certainly they also said in the paper that they're going to meet in July.
Okay,
The 20th or something.
Yeah.
July 20th. Okay, well, that's news.
August 5th, we're on.
That's news to us. So that does raise the possibility that we return there on August 5th. I think we have some checking, some follow-up checking to do.
If for
now.
some reason the city was unwilling to allow us to pay them to be in their chambers, could we just say we're going to start in August, the school's going to start in August and people are going to be back and we're going to start back to our in-person meetings in August and, locations TBD.
Yeah, nothing prevents us from doing that, obviously. I think we have seen the benefit of streaming and more people attending meetings, watching meetings and such. Since our big ticket, high profile items kind of dried up as we reopened school and such, we've been averaging 25, 30 people attending each of these meetings, most of whom are administrative staff. And then almost all the rest are other staff in the district, which with just 2 or 3 parents most commonly. So there are, I have heard calls that we Zoom every meeting, and people would always have the ability to contact in through Zoom and such. And What we know is at this point in time, or what we think we know at this point in time, is through the council chambers and Granicus, which is the system that that they have set up there, that Zoom, that kind of interactive process won't be part of the system as designed there. So we really would be looking at a return to the model of people coming to our meetings in person and participating the old-fashioned way and not having the video virtual access to
They could
participate
view
in the
it,
meeting.
they could view them, as
Absolutely
they've
view.
always been able to do,
Yes,
but not the interaction, right?
Mhm. So we want full steam ahead in person in the
Yeah.
council chambers.
Yeah.
Is that's our staff's,
I would say that also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that in the event that the city is not willing to allow us to rent in August for whatever reason, or September, or whenever, that we would like to begin with our first meeting in August being back to in-person. And so we just have to find another location.
whether in this room
Yeah,
or Dixon
or-
High Theater or multipurpose room? Yes, okay.
Is everybody on the same page with that?
Yes.
Great, so
We will have plan B.
not an action item,
Yeah.
but this is just a direction to
Yeah.
superintendent regarding what we'd like to see happening starting in August. And again, I think the important thing for us to recognize is we're going to ask, 3,000 kids and everybody else to come back, and it's time for us all to be back. And we're back together, but I just think it's an important message to send that we're ready to resume some sense of normalcy in terms of our meetings. So we'll do that. Okay, great. So you have your direction on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to B1. And this is the AB 1200 disclosure and public comment for the MOUs on the continuity of services with Dixon Unified School District, DTA, SEAU, and unrepresented management and confidential employees.
And
Helen, real quick, did you do public comment on the last?
I did, before you asked,
On the.
oh, maybe I didn't be on the, let me back up. All right, sorry.
Sorry.
Public comment on the location format of governing boards. Is there any public comment? All right,
Sorry.
seeing it. No, that's okay. No, I overlap a little bit there. So, all right, we're good now. B1.
all right, and just before he presents this item, I wanted to introduce Bruce Colby. Bruce is part of Government Financial Strategies. He is serving as our in-district consultant while our chief business official position is vacant. Bruce has been terrific here in the few weeks that he's been on board. We're going to be able to continue with his assistance for some time. Sorry, Bruce. He's working very hard. And he's a retiree, working harder probably than he worked when he was a full-time chief business official, still active in the district. Lots going on here in Dixon. So I'm going to ask Bruce to just comment briefly here on our AB 1200 disclosures. These relate to the $2,400 stipends all employees will be receiving in this school year. Bruce, it's all yours.
Thank you, Superintendent Dolan. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Madam President, fellow board members, the first item I'm presenting tonight is a public disclosure of the tentative agreements from the collective bargaining in regards to the stipend for continuity of learning and transition to traditional instruction for this school year. The proposed stipend is $2,400 per employee. That's $200 per month for 12-month employees and $218 per month for the 11-month employees. The combined cost for all employees is $985,000. The Dixon Teachers Association's cost is $490,000. The SEIU cost is $410,000, and the unrepresented management and confidential employees is $85,000. These stipends are all funded by restricted federal categorical funds from the Elementary and Secondary School Relief II Program Act, commonly referred to as ESSER II. Our ESSER II allocation is $2.4 million. So this is a major cost item for that funding stream. The costs are already in the budget, and the only revision that has to be made to the budget is to transfer it and move it to the appropriate labor expense line. Now this is an information item. The actual approvals are later in the agenda.
Great. Excellent. Is there any comment or questions from the board on the informational portion of this? All right. Is there any public comment on the informational portion of this? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the next item. Thank you for that presentation.
Okay, the next item is to open a financial fund for the district. The district was awarded a career technical education facilities grant for Dixon High School. I believe it was for the farm. That's good news. It was $1.126 million. These type of awards are accounted for in Fund 35, County School Facilities Funds. The district had one of these at one point, but I believe someone closed it because it hadn't been used in a while. So this is just merely an administrative item to open that fund back up, because in order to properly account for the funds, we have to put it through Fund 35.
Great. Is there any board questions or comment on the establishment of Fund 35? Is there any public question or comment on the establishment of Fund 35? All right, seeing none, it's a resolution, so we'll do a roll call vote, although we're pretty adept at roll call votes. So is there a motion on that item? There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. And DJ?
Aye.
Melissa? Aye. Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. Motion passes. Thank you again for
Thank you.
that. And we are on C1, the memorandum of understanding between Dixon Unified School District and DTA for the continuity of services for the 2021-2022 school year.
And just before she starts, as this is her first board meeting with us, I'd like to introduce Tanya Kutz. Tanya is in day 8 as our new Executive Director of Human Resources and Employee Relations. So we welcome her to Dixon Unified. And here's your first couple items. Tanya, have fun.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President O'Halloran, members of the board, and Superintendent Dolan. The first item before you is an MOU between the district and the Dixon Teachers Association. Given the past year and a half with distance learning and hybrid model, and the fact that this year we are returning to the classroom in the traditional setting, in the traditional school setting, this MOU actually ensures that the children will have the continuity of the same services and support during the 2021-2022 school year. The MOU has been uploaded to Granicus for a complete read, and staff recommends approving this item.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any board questions or comments on this item?
My quick question is already been like TA'd and voted on by the labor units?
Yes. Okay.
Any other board comments or questions? All right, how about public comments or questions on this item? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. That motion passes. Thank you very much. And we are on C2, MOU between Dixon Unified and SEIU for the 2021-22 school year.
Yes, this is an MOU between the district and SEIU to ensure the same level of service to our students as we return to the traditional school setting for the 21-22 school year. Again, this MOU has been uploaded to Granicus as well for review. Staff recommends approving this item.
Great, thank you. All right, is there a motion, or is there board comment on this item? Public comment on this item? All right, is there a motion?
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. Motion passes. And we're on to the third item here this evening. Memorandum of understanding between Dixon Unified School District, unrepresented employees for continuity of services for the 2021-2022 school year.
This third MOU between the district and all the unrepresented employees as we return to the traditional classroom setting to ensure the students will continue to have the continuity of services for the 21-22 school year. And this MOU as well has been uploaded to Granicus for review for anyone, and the staff does recommend approving this item.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any is there any board comment or questions on this item? Public comment or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. All right, thank you very much for your presentations. And we are on to D1, the approval of the Williams Quarterly Report. Mr. Giramonte.
Good evening, Madam President and School Board, and Superintendent Dolan. Our first item tonight is approval of the Williams Quarterly Report, which reflects no complaints filed in the last 3 months of the school year.
Excellent. All right, is there any board question or comment on this item? Is there any public questions or comments on this item? All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve this report. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Jewel seconds. DJ?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
And I as well. Excellent, thank you. And D1, I'm sorry, D2, update on planning for Dixon Unified School District's non-classroom based instruction.
No buildings.
I lost my.
See the screen, I assume, yes? All right, so this is something that we talked a little bit about at prior meetings, the need to have an option for our students and families who would choose to keep their students to continue learning from home in the absence of a distance learning option. Distance learning officially ended on June 30th, so districts needed to find a different way to structure those programs if they were going to continue allowing students to learn from home. Traditionally, that would be an independent learning or independent studies program in a district like Dixon Unified. There are some other options, but that's what we had been discussing. So we did some initial outreach to families in June, did a meeting with those families as well as some surveying. We also had a sense that it was louder than a whisper, but we knew that there was some potential legislation pending at that time. We weren't sure if it was going to pass. It has passed, so this is a lot of very new information here in the last few days. And I'll cop to the fact that we're going to end this presentation with some outstanding questions that we still have and don't have answers to yet. But we do have some good information to share with the board and the community tonight. I want to thank Chantal McCammon and Yvette Ramos for their help in the consultation on preparing this presentation as well. So the first up, we're going to go through some of the new regulations. There's more here than what I'll go over, but I want to make sure that we keep things moving tonight, but also kind of hit the major things. So first off, this is part of the enacted budget, and it makes significant changes to independent study programs. Again, independent studies existed in California for a long time, but these new rules and regulations are intended to increase the quality of these programs. All districts are required to offer independent study or independent learning in 21-22. Please note that I'm saying this is not distance learning, but independent study in 21-22. Districts may apply for a waiver to not have these programs if certain conditions are met. I won't necessarily go into those right now, unless the board would like me to.
No.
So, I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Agreed.
So a couple of these items here, and I'll just go through these quickly. Some of the new requirements that are in the law, and some of these are really are consistent with what we've seen in the past. It's just that they're now more codified for us. So the first one here is that curriculum instructional minutes and student to teacher ratios must be equivalent to what is offered in person. So this isn't a shortened day. This isn't less standards. It is a full day for students to be learning. That we need to have technology ready for students. That includes Wi-Fi if they need it. There needs to be daily monitoring of participation, including online activities, live instruction, etc. We have to have plans to support targeted groups like our English learners, our students from low-income families, our foster youth, etc. We need to offer free and reduced meals to students who qualify for them. We need to have plans to transition students who wish to return to regular program. I'll talk more about that in a bit. We also need to have strategies to re-engage students who are absent for several days. And last two here, we need to make sure we have regular communication established in home and school. And lastly, and this is certainly a new one for us, that the high school courses which meet graduation requirements, that's not new, but that they meet A through G requirements. And that is would be a change for us in a lot of districts who've had these programs in the past. So what are some of those instructional requirements? And I'll just really quickly say that prior to this change, districts were with students in independent study, there needed to be a plan for students to meet with staff, but that could be as little as once a week. That's changed pretty significantly here. In grades TK through 3, we're required to have daily synchronous instruction. In grades 4 through 8, it's weekly synchronous instruction with the option for daily contact. And 9 through 12, it's weekly synchronous instruction. I put a note here at the bottom. Synchronous here has not yet been defined for us. You know, does that mean an hour? Does that mean 2 hours? Does that mean it has to be for every subject matter? Or can you focus these? We are, I think, splitting, kind of going down the middle with what our interpretation of this. I emailed the state today for some more information, and I got a generic email back from them that basically says they're going to come out with information on this. They're frantically trying to write regs, et cetera, for this, and they're not answering individual questions yet. So, you know, as we read more, we'll get more information, but we just don't have these answered yet. Like I said, we're going to end with some questions today for that reason. So other district responsibilities with regard to IS, as a traditional IS, they still need to have a master agreement with the district. That basically is the student and guardians sitting with a member of the district and conferencing about what the expectations are for the program. And it's a commitment from both the district and the families that they're going to meet what's stated in that master agreement. Districts have to revise board policies to clearly articulate the new requirements. We'll get to that in a moment as well. For students who do not meet program expectations, we need to have a process to transition those students back to the district school or to their district school. So, you know, we do need to give students an opportunity to be successful in this program, but if they're not being successful, we also have an obligation to bring them back to the regular program. And finally, students, of course, and families can choose to return to the regular program at any time, and we have to get them back within 5 days of their request. So quick turnaround there to get them scheduled and get them in classes, et cetera. So let's talk quickly about what we're thinking about for elementary here. So at first, I want to say that if I go back a couple of slides here, and you'll notice here that the state has divided this up into TK3 and 4-8 with regard to some of these requirements. And for us, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We have an elementary system, which is TK5. We have a secondary system, which is 6 through 12. So we're going to continue to think about things in those terms because that's how our system operates. So right now, what we'd be looking at is a daily synchronous instruction in TK through 5 at the grade level of the student. So the first graders would be the first graders with our teacher. We would have one teacher who would work with students in TK through 2nd, and one teacher who would work with students in grades 3 through 5. So 2.0 FTE dedicated to this. Again, this is presuming a lot of things around numbers, et cetera, but that's sort of our initial planning around that. And so, you know, as an example, the teacher working with grades 3rd through 5 would do an hour with the 3rd grade group, an hour with the 4th grade group, and an hour with the 5th grade group. We would not have a 3rd grade teacher working with 3rd grade kids, a 4th grade teacher working with 4th grade kids. Our 3rd grade teachers and 4th grade teachers, et cetera, have a full-time job already of instructing their regular classes. Nor will we have, and we don't think we will have, enough students to merit an entire FTE just to focus on one of these grade levels. Our numbers are not suggesting that we'll be able to do that at this point. As the law states, students will have access to all core curriculum, and during that synchronous time, we'll have an emphasis on ELA and math, as those are our key areas of study. Physical education minutes will need to be met by students at home. We've got some options around doing that. And then students are going to remain enrolled at their home school and return to that home school for in-person learning. So if you're a Tremont kid, as an example, you'll stay enrolled in Tremont, but do independent study. And then when your child is ready to return to school, if they're ready to return to school, or if they need to be returned to school, they would go back to Tremont. We wouldn't put them in Anderson or Gretchen or anything like that. With regard to secondary planning, again, you know, you saw some differences between the 6-8 and 9-12. We are going to continue to treat this as a secondary system because that makes the most sense for us. So they will have the weekly synchronous instruction as is required by law. Grades 6 through 8 need to have the option for daily contact, so we need to build that into the schedule. What we're looking at here is one teacher advisor for grades 6 through 8 and one teacher advisor for students in grades 9 through 12. And this is a big change for us here. There's no way to do this, especially with regard to meeting our A through G requirements without having a third-party vendor for a curriculum. So there are a number of options out there that we are exploring right now. This is typically this is going to be really common in a lot of places. You know, you've heard of Edgenuity is kind of a big player out there. So we are going to explore these with our teams to figure out which one is the best. None of these options will be cheap. I'll say that out front. But we're not able to meet. We do not believe what is required under the law, especially with regard to A through G, without doing this. I think one thing to mention here is that because we feel like there will be some fluidity between this program and kids wanting to return to school, the classes that students will be able to take on Edgenuity will only be, or sorry, I don't want to say Edgenuity, but on the online platform, that's the one I was looking at earlier. The online platform will be classes that have a direct sister class at the school of origin. In other words, this won't be a place where students can go take an elective class that we don't offer at Dixon High School as an example, because if that student needs to transition back to Dixon High School and we don't have that matching class, that will be impossible for us to do. So if a kid wants to take a German class, that's all well and good. We're not going to offer German class. We don't have that at Dixon High School. They're not going to be able to do that. We won't have a place to put them when they return to in-person learning. Students will have access to extracurricular activities. As far as co-curricular activities, that will, a lot of those are limited by what classes the kids are in. So we'll have to kind of play that one based on what we're able to offer. Extracurricular activities, though, that is absolutely, kids will have access to extracurricular activities. Lastly, students are going to remain, like with elementary, they'll remain enrolled at their quote home school. So they'll be a student at JKMS or DHS or MPHS. And then when they return, they would return to the school where they typically attend. So items that we're still working on here, you know, and want to just share with folks. So current numbers. So we've put out we asked for some commitments for families after our meeting. We've had 60 students express interest so far, and that's in grades K through 12. So it's across the spectrum. So again, staffing projection to do this, what I just described would be 4.0 FTE. Again, 60 students for 4.0 FTE. It certainly exceeds what we currently staff at for our students. We think 60 is probably a little light. We think once we get this program up, we'll probably have a few more students that will be interested in joining. We're not sure yet, but that's our hunch. We'll still need to, again, settle that curriculum adoption for our secondary students. Our services to specialized populations, including students in IEPs, we need to iron out that process and work with Kim Parrott and her team to do that. We can't simply exclude students with IEPs on this. However, it would need to be something that's reflected in their IEP. And there's also some language around, and this just speaks to all students, not just students with IEPs. You know, this as an option for students who are below grade level will be pretty challenging. We do want to be honest when we say that. Again, not in and of itself a reason to exclude students, but we need to be monitoring that really carefully. We need to iron out our family communication plans. And finally, board policies must be updated ASAP. And so we're awaiting a CSBA on that. I think Brian got some information on that earlier today. Every district in California has to do this, so CSBA likely will have these ready here, I would assume prior to the August meeting, but I can't say for sure. Brian, do you know any more on that?
No estimated time of arrival, and not all districts use CBA for the policies, but we are all, you know, the policies are required to be adopted prior to school starting. So we have until August 5th, unless there's a special meeting to adopt these. And
I will point out that there are districts in California that have already started school. So you have people already technically out of compliance on this. So. All right, and then again, I said we were going to end with some questions that we still have. This is because a lot of this is so new. So, you know, are there credentialing considerations that will impact our ability to implement as described? That's especially true at the secondary level. I asked that question today to the state, and I know that Tanya and Kathy over in HR are working with the county to get some clarification on this. Is there clarity on what synchronous means? You know, how many minutes are required to meet that threshold? You know, for all curricular areas, we just don't know that yet. You know, how will we work with our special education students in this model? I talked about that earlier. What happens if program staffing needs decrease or increase during the school year? So, you know, we could see a potential situation where maybe we start with, you know, 100 students as an example, but by October, we have 50 students left in the program. Well, at that point, it begs the question of, are we staffed appropriately? So we'd have to have a process to figure out what we're going to do with that staffing and adjust as needed. And finally, there are no specific additional funds for this that we see. So to what extent can we use other specialized funds like the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, ESSER, LCAP, et cetera, to offset the cost of these programs? I had a brief conversation with Bruce today, but we're looking at some expenditures here. We think we can use some of these specialized funds, but we just need to do a little more research on that. So I will take comments and questions now.
All right, are there board comments and questions, DJ?
Two of my questions are on your questions, so I'm glad we're on the same wavelength there. One of them is use the term teacher advisor. I noticed you were very careful about that. Didn't say teacher. I don't know. Is there a specific reason why that's there?
I think what it's meant to reflect is that it will be a teacher. A teacher advisor. No reason. Just to point out to something different.
You on the two of the program slides, you wrote like they're going to be enrolled in the school, and then you said will return to that school for in-person learning. They only will return to that school if they opt out of this program, right? Not. You said it reads kind of like they will return no matter what, but that's not right, right?
Exactly. Yes, I caught that as I was reading. Yeah, that's if there's two scenarios there. One is the obvious one where a family decides it's time to bring their kid back to the regular program. The other option is those master agreements are binding. So if a kid is not meeting the expectations that we put upon them, either with attendance or academic success, et cetera, then we would initiate the process to return them to their school.
My last question is just a choice, right? A family could just say we want this. There doesn't have to be a specific reason.
Right. Yeah. Again, I think the one caveat there would be we need to for our students with IEPs, we need to have some, that's a team decision, and as far as whether or not we can meet the goals of the IEP through this program.
Kim, did you want to elaborate on that? I saw you waving over there.
Nick said it perfectly. There have been independent study has been addressed in special education law for years, and it has to be an IEP team decision that the independent study structure is going to meet all the identified needs of the students, just like Nick just said. So I just wanted to make sure that the parents out there with children with IEPs understand that an IEP meeting would have to be held and all the needs of their child looked at in order to determine whether that would be an appropriate placement for their child before they could participate in the independent study.
Thank you for that clarification. Other board questions, comments?
Well, I'm just kind of confused about the mandate that these classes have to be A through G accepted or accredited, and maybe students wouldn't opt for this, but if they did, how is that going to work? When it doesn't sound like the staff is going to be full-time anyway, correct, Nick?
No, we would see those folks as being full-time, but they wouldn't work with students. This is still independent. I mean, the independent is still there. So students would still be working primarily on their own. However, with the whatever third-party curricular resource we adopted, they are approved A through G already. They come prepackaged A through G. So
okay.
But they are rigorous. I mean, I want to be really clear, like these aren't, this isn't a watered down piece. It's challenging for kids to do. And these programs do have supports built into them, online tutorials for them. But students will need to do more on their own than they're accustomed to doing, I think, in a traditional setting. As far as a kid not wanting to do A through G, it's, especially for Dixon High School students, most courses there are A through G classes. I mean, it's pretty hard to not take A through G classes at Dixon High School. So this would just be, like I said, they would have sister classes at Dixon High School if they needed to come back to the regular program.
Yeah, it's much clearer now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other board questions, comments? I just had one thing, Nick, that I want to just sort of add to your list of questions, because I know other folks are asking it and talking about it in Sacramento. does the phrase offer synchronous learning, does that mean that as a parent, I would have to tell my child that they would have to do it, right? The district has to offer it. Does the student have to actually take that?
And I'll just add to the question before you answer it, Nick. At the school services workshop today, they said provide the opportunity.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I think
very
that's-
similar,
Yeah, conversation.
very similar wording
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
So I've heard that language with the daily contact for grades 4 through 8. I think my response, and I don't know the answer yet, but what I would assume is that in the traditional independent study piece, kids needed to come in for an hour. That was part of the master agreement. And if they didn't come in for an hour, then they were not meeting the expectations of the master agreement, and they could essentially be dropped from independent study. I would think that if we are required to do the synchronous learning for the purposes of apportionment, attendance, et cetera, that if a kid's not showing up to those, and again, I think we would envision this would be something that would be done virtually, that would be a requirement, not an option. But that's my early read of this. So I think it's a great question, Catlin, for us to follow up on.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'm going to open for public comments and questions on this item. All right, seeing none. Thank you for that presentation, and thank you for your work on this. This is a big one for us, and it's also changing really rapidly.
Last
so-
minute. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, across the state, people are just feeling panicked,
Yes. I'm
especially if
sure.
they hadn't been doing any planning for,
I think
you know,
that's a good
oh,
position. We've
boy.
already been down this road.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to
Pat
you.
ourselves on the back.
Exactly. Yes, we're doing it. Great.
not until it's up and running. That's when the backpedaling will start.
Michelle, yes. All right. We are on agenda items for future meetings. Are there any board members who'd like to add an agenda item for a future meeting?
I've been talking to, I mentioned this to Brian, about relooking at our food services. I've been able this summer to see what Vacaville is offering for their grab and go kind of lunches, and they do it for a week. And they're all homemade and they're all amazing meals. And my 13-year-old said, if our school lunches were like this, I'd buy lunches. And so I know that there's been times when I'm like really busy and haven't had time to make my kids lunches. And they're like, well, we're not eating at school. And so I would like us to really look at their program, and we're going to try to schedule hopefully a visit to go look at their program and what they're doing and how I saw that they're piloting a program to have really fresh food that's locally, and it was just really amazing to see. So
Great. I think that's a great item for a future, yeah.
Jesse Rios has already made some contact down there, so we're working on getting a visit scheduled.
What do you mean by they're homemade?
So like, okay, so like an idea of a box was like, a lasagna that their staff made. It wasn't like a frozen lasagna that they made. That was in a little thing that could be like cooked in the oven. There was like, so, they had a pizza that you could tell was made out of whole wheat crust. That was wrapped
Like
up.
school made as opposed to homemade.
No, I mean, the school staff made it.
From scratch.
Scratch made, it's not,
Scratch.
okay, let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear to be processed food.
Not
It's not a
prepackaged.
corn dog, it's not, it's what I would say homemade, you know, it's fresh, it's, you know, they've given, like, one time it was like a whole thing of strawberries per kid, a whole thing of blackberries, a whole thing of raspberries, which is,
Wow.
you know, and salads every time, and,
That'd be great.
breakfast burritos, like cinnamon rolls, like it's just really neat to see what they've done. And I think that we could probably do something like that. I think it's convenient. I know like for their summer program at two of their schools, they still have where you can pick up every day. And I don't know what that food is, but then they also have their summer food program is where you can go and pick up a box for the week. And so I would like to see if those meals that they're serving for the summer, which I'm assuming that they're similar to what they're serving in their schools during the week or during the school year. And so I just think, you know, if I have a 13-year-old that says, if our food was like this at school, I'd buy lunches. I think that would help us a lot.
Yeah.
And we know we've had issues with food service as far as not having the revenue that we need. And so how we do that is have better food and get more students to participate.
Well, we also have an upcoming mandate to have more meals,
Yes.
more free meals. So
Yes, yes,
I think
yes.
putting high quality free meals would sort of meet that mandate, really.
Certainly.
And probably with that mandate, we'll only get reimbursed per what meals we serve.
Mhm.
Right,
So if we're not serving meals, we're not gonna get the money back.
yeah, that's right. Okay, any other agenda items for future meetings? All right, board announcements. Does anyone have a board announcement? No board announcements. All right. Coming events, our next meeting will be August 5th. It will be an in-person board meeting. Folks can view by Zoom or other method, but we will not be doing the back and forth that way, and the location will be determined, hopefully in the city hall.
Can I
So,
just add, upcoming on August 7th, Saturday, August 7th, is going to be the grand opening, ribbon cutting, big hoopla for John Knight Middle School. So we're getting some invitations out and the broader publicity will go, but it's going to be at 1 o'clock Saturday, August 7th.
excellent. Looking forward to that. All right. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.